If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. Henry Ford. We can't improve if we don't change. Self-development is change. Remember that we need to know 3 things to improve: where we are, where we want to go, and how to get there. How to get from where we are right now to where we want to be. Now, change is the very process by which we get from where we are to where we want to be. But change is hard. If it were easy, all of us would be Stoic sages living in virtue and harmony. So what is the nature of change? And why do so many of us know on some level that there are things about us that we need to modify, yet we fail to do so? Change is hard, yes, but it's also inevitable. The Stoics spoke much about how things never stay the same. Take the honorary Stoic Heraclitus. He said, "Everything changes and nothing remains still, and you cannot step twice into the same stream." The reasoning behind this fragment, and that's all we have from Heraclitus, by the way, is fragments because he wrote so long ago. He was pre-Stoic. The reasoning behind this fragment of Heraclitus is that the river itself changes constantly, and you have also changed. So the river that you're stepping in can never be the same again, and you can never be the same again. From moment to moment, we change. And that's true psychologically, it's true philosophically, it's also true biologically, meaning your cells are always in a state of death and then life. New cells come to replace the old dead cells. So we're always constantly changing. It's pretty interesting. People say you are what you eat. Well, you literally are what you eat. So it's worth stating that when we are talking about change in the philosophy as a way of life world in this perspective, we're talking about meaningful, productive change, because things are always going to change, period, just by the very nature of reality. We are talking about change in a specific direction that is towards a good character. That's the whole Stoic idea. Positive change rarely happens on its own. It's possible, as many things are, but shouldn't be considered the norm. It's not likely that change is going to be for the positive. You shouldn't just assume that if you do nothing, things will get better. Seneca said, after all that, no man was ever wise by chance. In fact, change tends to be naturally towards regression, the opposite of progression. Take going to the gym. You have to work really hard to see any improvement. What do you have to do to see negative improvement? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You can do nothing and you will regress. You won't get better. You'll get worse. Your strength will decay. Your cardio will get reduced to nothing. You'll get out of breath going up the stairs. Now, sometimes life pushes us in a particular way that naturally generates positive change, but it only does so if we have intention to generate it. And this can be explained simply with the dichotomy of control, the Stoic doctrine that everybody and their grandmother knows. What is good in Stoicism is your character, and only you can change your character. Everything else is not up to you. So change is inherent in the structure of the universe, but if we wish to have positive change, we must be the drivers. Similar to how the wind and current of the ocean will move your boat, only you, with the use of your sail and rudder, and if you're lucky, an outboard motor, can get you to where you want to go. And there's a little lesson in that too. If you don't have intention, you'll still go somewhere. It just might not be anywhere good. On the difficulty of personal change. Well, there's always a gap between what we know to be true and how we act in the world. Even if you were totally bought in to the virtue is the only good thing, you were a Stoic believer, you're going to make mistakes along the way towards virtue. You'll fail at times, you'll stumble, and hopefully you'll get back up after. Let's take a look at a modern universal example, one we can all relate to: social media use. I think that most of us spend too much time on social media. Obviously, it's a pretty common thing to say these days. Yet, social media is being used more than like anything else. It's crazy. I think the statistics on that is pretty clear. And those who don't use social media, they're regarded as a bit eccentric. Isn't that interesting that you say, oh, I'm not on social media and people think you're a weirdo? Very, very funny. Now, we know it's not good for us. A little bit's okay. A little bit of anything can be okay, I suppose. But we know that too much social media use is not good for us. And we have the data to back that up. Yet we scroll through endless reels. We scroll through reels that we've already seen. We get a tiny yet very insufficient hit of dopamine every time we scroll. That's why we do it. We get this impulse. And we go, we scroll, and we get a little tiny hit of dopamine. But the problem with that is that you exhaust your reward systems and you end up doing things, but you're not really getting the reward anymore. And that's where so many of us are. We're scrolling through social media. And if you do that maybe for 10 minutes a day, that's going to feel very rewarding. It's going to feel great. If you do it too much, 1,000 times a day, well, guess what? Your reward systems are drained and you're just going to be like on this treadmill. It's not even enjoyable anymore. We know it's bad and yet we're doing it. As we scroll, there's this little voice that says, you're wasting time. This isn't even enjoyable anymore. You should stop. Now, of course, I have to make sure that it's clear that social media, it can be used in an appropriate way. Nothing is good or bad in Stoicism. It's how it affects our character. And you can use social media to improve your character over time. But how many of us are using it inappropriately? How many of us use it to avoid feeling bored, to procrastinate from work, to avoid feeling awkward at the Starbucks lineup? Yet, how many of us are taking active steps to reduce our use? We tell ourselves that we will simply keep the app on our phone and not use it. I should say we lie to ourselves. Yet we get bored, we feel awkward or anxious, we open our phones, and we start scrolling. If you really believe that social media is a problem for you, wouldn't you do everything that you can to stop? Wouldn't you remove the app from your phone or at least use one of those apps that shut off your usage after an hour or so? Those do exist. You'd think we would, but we don't. It's a curious thing. Why do we continue to do things that we know are not good for us? Why do we not take the steps on the road to becoming more fulfilled? Most of us are more scared of the unknown than we like to admit. Sure, we like watching Marvel movies of heroes defeating villains and saving the world. Yet the thought of getting outside of our own comfort zone terrifies us so much that we never wander from our treadmill. We want to keep ourselves on this particular track, even though there are better ones. People take comfort from familiarity. We can use the example of personal relationships. Let's say you have a friend that you've known for years, an old high school buddy perhaps. You spend a lot of time together, but you know that they aren't demanding the best from you. You know that they are influencing you to stay home and play video games or to hate the world or to stay overweight. You know this. And yet, you keep hanging out with this friend. You know the friendship isn't good for you, but you stay. Why? Well, because it's your friend. You've known them forever. You're comfortable. You know they're not the best for you, but you know them. You know what you're getting. If you were to stop hanging out with this person, what would that mean? Well, it would mean that you may have to be friendless for a while if you got only the one friend. That's a little unpleasant. It's unpleasant to be a loner for a little while. It would also mean that you would have to go out into the world and try and make a new friend. Now that sounds really unpleasant. And who even knows if it would be successful? What if you never end up making a new friend at all and you spend the rest of your life alone? What if? What if? What if? These are the questions we ask ourselves so that we can stay in our comfort zone. We ramp ourselves up with potential future situations that don't even necessarily have to happen, but we use those thoughts in our heads to have fear and not move forward. We stay in our current life not always because we don't know any better or because we don't have agency to change, but because we are afraid of what's out there on that journey. Take the exchange between Gandalf and Bilbo in The Hobbit before Bilbo agrees to go on an adventure. Gandalf: you'll have a tale or two to tell when you come back. Bilbo: you can promise that I will come back? Gandalf: no. And if you do, you will not be the same. Why don't we change? Perhaps in large part it's because we are afraid of the journey that facilitates change, and we are geared to avoid unpleasantness. Let's get practical. How do we change? We've established what change is, that it's inherent in the structure of reality, and that we should aim for positive change. That's what we're talking about, and why we struggle with it. Assuming we know where we want to go, which is no small question, how do we get there practically? Now, the first step is to confess. Now, that's a bit of a religious term, isn't it? But really what confess means, what it means to confess, is that you're going to just face the truth of your own reality. You're going to look yourself in the mirror and see all your flaws. Yes, you need to confess where you are missing the mark. Now, this is no easy thing, but you can probably list out pretty quickly the areas that you are missing the mark. What's holding you back? What don't you need in your life? What things are wasting time in your day? Here's some common ones. Too much social media. Unproductive relationships. Those are two of the ones I gave earlier. What about unhealthy eating habits? What about too little exercise? So you make this list, all the things that are wasting time in my life, things I could do better on. And then you need to write down a corresponding action that facilitates positive growth. Now, this depends where you are. Your goals must be realistic given the context of you and where you are right now. And I can't tell you what that is right now because I don't know you. I don't know where you are right now. But let's go through some examples, some possible actions. Let's say you're struggling with social media. Maybe you can limit it to 1 hour a day. Let's say you have some unproductive relationships. Maybe you can try something new with the intention of connecting with people that you admire. Rock climbing, weightlifting, diving, knitting. It doesn't matter. What if you're struggling with unhealthy eating habits? Put all your junk food in the most troublesome cupboard in your kitchen, meaning high up behind a case of bubbly. Too little exercise. Can you make a habit of walking for 10 minutes every morning? These are small, actionable goals that you can implement right away to facilitate change and growth. And that's where the magic is. It's in the little things, these little tweaks that you make that add up over time. Clearly, these goals are examples and change depending on where you are, but this is the process. Confess where you are missing the mark and then develop an action plan. You must have clarity on where you want to go, and you need actionable goals. But even before all that, you have to understand and accept that for you to change means work. It means venturing into the unknown. It means being uncomfortable. It means failing. And perhaps most importantly, it means faith. Faith that you can get better. Faith that once you make a good decision, the universe will help you out. Emerson said, once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. Now, there isn't anything unscientific about that statement. What happens is that your perception of the world changes based on your goals. If you fully commit to a goal, let's say to make a new friend, you will begin looking for opportunities to make new friends. And with a bit of luck and a lot of courage, maybe you can sail against the wind and current. Maybe you can get to your destination of your own accord. You are going somewhere. Know that. But do you want to wander aimlessly through life or with purpose? If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe with the notifications turned on. The Strong Stoic Podcast is also available in audio wherever you listen to your podcasts. Finally, you can join Substack to gain access to transcripts, articles, and premium podcast episodes.